Hello and welcome to lecture number 6, Software as a Service, or SaaS. Actually, SaaS is the big thing in IT and the world now. All vendors are moving to monetize their software and services based on subscriptions. And customers favor SaaS because of ease of use and reducing CapEx, which are IT infrastructures, purchased license, thus reduce assets, and to reduce OpEx, which is IT staff salaries, support, and operations costs. As the vendor take care of all that and the customer can focus on his core business activities. In this lecture, we will break down what goes into a SaaS license and why understanding license agreement matters. It's no secret that companies are buying SaaS, software as a service, like never before. Case in point, the SaaS market will grow by 17% and account for $116 billion in spending in 2020 alone. Perhaps what's most notable isn't just the growth of the SaaS space, though, it's how quickly companies are accumulating new applications, subscriptions, and licenses. And when we are talking about the average organization running hundreds of apps, that's a lot of license to manage. Zelo Data shows the average enterprise maintains an inventory of 600 SaaS applications. But something important often gets lost when we talk about the sheer volume of application quantity, SaaS licenses, and the sometimes confusing legalese involved with managing enterprise software. Also, it reduces CapEx and OpEx, as we have mentioned before. To kick off things, we will highlight how the SaaS license model works in layman's terms. Unlike a perpetual license agreement, which involves one-time payment and full ownership of software, a SaaS license is an ongoing commitment for as long as you pay for the service. Think of your license as being bundled with your SaaS subscription. When you become a subscriber to a service, you have to access that product's updates, latest features, and support staff. Arguably, the biggest bonus of a SaaS license, the freedom from being responsible for the upkeep of servers or data. This advantage makes SaaS more affordable and easier to manage for most companies. There are a variety of software licensing models available for SaaS, although most operate on an annual or monthly subscription. Despite these issues, the ease of use, affordability, and growth of SaaS tools typically outweigh the potential cons related to licensing. This advantage might all seem pretty straightforward at a glance. Likewise, the downsides of a perpetual license versus SaaS are apparent, right? However, SaaS licenses can potentially cause headaches in large organizations, depending on how they manage IT assets and especially SaaS. How so? For starters, consider that acquisition and ownership of licenses are no longer necessarily managed by IT teams. Instead, as product-led growth has become the mantra for SaaS title makers, individual business units and employees now make up a significant portion of direct SaaS purchases. Multiple teams tied to so many services and licenses could result in overlap and waste, but more on that later. And if your company has traditionally managed software with software asset management, SAM, processes, adjusting to cloud software license strategy compared to an on-premises license management strategy can be challenging. The issue of entitlement management remains very much the same. It's critical to understand and manage entitlements, whether they be for licensed software usage or SaaS usage. Understanding usage against these entitlements is, of course, slightly different for each one. Why managing SaaS license matter? First, due to the looming risk of shadow IT, that SaaS licenses are easy to acquire and deploy, and while that's typically considered a benefit of SaaS, consider that the IT teams aren't always aware of products purchased by employees without IT approval. This phenomena is known as shadow IT. Given that 1 in 3 employees purchase SaaS applications on behalf of their companies, this all happens more often than you might think. The most obvious problems associated with shadow IT include wasted money and resources. For example, a company might end up purchasing a new subscription or license for a product they already own. Also, wasted money on lost discounts and redundant tools. When employees lead the purchasing process for a product, they are getting a license on a one-on-one basis. In other words, they could be foregoing potential volume discounts for enterprise level buyers. Also, consider that if and when teams or employees purchase new applications without first evaluating current software inventory, redundant or duplicate purchases are frequent. Potential overlap between many products and their peripheral features is a well known attribute with SaaS subscription models, as title makers compete to earn best of breed status. While this benefits software innovation, lack of visibility into existing tools can lead to employees purchase solutions that are already being served by existing licenses. Security and compliance issues. Simply put, employee purchased SaaS does not undergo the same vetting and security checks as an application purchased by the IT department. Lack of vetting can expose companies to risks of data breaches or compliance issues related to regulations such as GDPR, HIPAA, or CCPA. Such problems can quickly fly under the radar, yet highlights how overlooking your SaaS licenses can result in something severe. Licenses can go unused. Did you know that as many as 38% of all licenses go unused according to Zylo's research regarding enterprise software? Couple that with the fact that the majority of SaaS customers log into or access a product less often than once per month. Translation: if your organization doesn't have a comprehensive understanding of how employees use application and how often, you are likely letting your software budget go to waste. On a related note, license renewal can creep up on your company if you aren't careful. SaaS licenses frequently include automatic renewal clauses. If you aren't actively managing licenses, it becomes quite easy to accidentally re-up for software your company does not want or need. It seems like a lot of gloom and doom, right? But as long as you create proactive strategies for how you purchase SaaS licenses and ensure that those purchases are going through the proper channels, you can avoid most of these issues with peace of mind. To wrap things up, we will highlight the specifics of a SaaS license agreement as it pertains to enterprise versus end user. Let's start with what an end user license agreement, EOLA, is, also known as a click-through agreement. A EOLA represents the out-of-the-box agreement that the software providers give to those purchasing or downloading a software for individual use. Chances are you have dealt with your fair share of EOLAs before when downloading an app. They are the walls of text you scroll through and the I agree box you tick without worrying too much about the fine print. EOLAs are usually lengthy and daunting for an average person to trudge through. Even so, They don't require any sort of back and forth with a software provider and allow for near instant use of a software application. The issue with EOLAs is that the customer has little to no ability to change the terms of an agreement if desired, as opposed to an enterprise license agreement, where a company would have some leverage due to their buying power. Think about it. Who has more pull in a negotiation over terms related to data or privacy with a software provider? The individual spending $100 annually per user, or the company spending tens of thousands of dollars on behalf of their employees? Additionally, the sort of buying in bulk also allows the purchaser favorable terms such as lower price point and appropriate customer service level. Oh, and an enterprise licensing agreement not only means negotiating power, but also avoiding the hassles related to juggling a bunch of individual software licenses. While the measurement of software usage is challenging, as outlined above for licensed software, similar issues are there for SaaS also. The entitlement model for the service offered may not be appropriate in order to understand true value. Without proper SAM tools, the usage information can only be derived from the service vendor, which may not match the usage perception of the customer. A method to match vendor-generated usage information with a standard form of entitlement information supplied by multiple services does not exist. For many years to come, cloud-based services will need to interoperate with licensed software in a user environment. Thus, a common usage measurement system with a single source of truth is required. You can find an organization using cloud and on-premise software from the same vendor or different vendors, and the apps have to integrate with each other. There is a need in the services life cycle management for an understanding of the current state and history of service usage from a feature, meter, and version point of view. This information may be required in a consolidated fashion across multiple providers and licensed software applications, so simply using provider information is not adequate. Internal cloud services need to be maintained by user consumer with just the same accuracy as licensed software. The key takeaway here is that while SaaS has mostly made life easier for companies and IT managers at large, this ease can cause problems for organizations that overlook the fine details of their licenses. Here we have reached the end of lecture 6. Thank you very much for following and see you in the next lecture.